Advisory Committee. We'll go around the room, we'll say who's here. Laura, we'll start with you.
Hi, my name's Laura Pickering.
Rob Mezzanotte, Assistant Superintendent.
Kenny Duba, Superintendent.
Erin Earl, School Committee Chair.
Jennifer Lima, School Committee Member. Does not look like there's anybody here for citizens' comments. Did everybody have a chance to review the minutes from the 10/28 meeting?
Yes.
Can I get a motion to approve?
I will make a motion to approve the minutes from October 28th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay. Erin, any updates with the transportation policy?
No, Ken, did Michelle
Yeah.
get to look at
Yep,
it?
her and I, we
Yeah.
worked on it last week.
Do you wanna look at those, Jen, and then we
Yeah.
can go from there?
Yep.
Yeah, we worked on the, which one is it? EEA. Not completely done with it, but we got to page 7. Sorry. No, page 5.
I feel like I'm not in the same one as you are right now.
Yeah, which one are we on here? We're on
It's the transportation policy, is the
Yeah.
one that Erin,
the Erin one?
It's just called transportation
Oh,
policy.
okay.
Got it.
Yeah. I was also in the wrong one, even though I
Yeah.
created this one, so it's great.
It happens.
I had added a couple questions to this too over the weekend.
so what we did was we went through it, Michelle and I, we met last week. We went through the policy, we moved a few items around, we kind of striked out things that we were moving or changed, and anything in red are the changes that we made to the policy. And then we got to the point, like, we ran out of time, but we didn't get to the end, there were other items that were in there, like, do we put it in the policy, or where does this go? But I can go through, just fix one thing, go through that if you'd like.
Yeah, do you want me to run us through, Jen?
Hmm.
Okay, so can you think the reference document should be moved to the end? The
So
section
I
to
would,
be moved-
yeah, I would put the references towards, at the end of the document. Just a suggestion, we just, looking at everything that was there, just put that towards the end, and then, I wouldn't include the contracts in the policy really isn't referring to any of the contracts, we don't list other contracts and other policies, so we just,
Yeah.
we strike that part of it. And then, the other thing, when we get into vehicles and staff, I don't know if we were defining them, if we wanted to put the word definitions, or, we didn't put it in there, but I didn't know if we wanted that next section to be titled.
Yeah, originally I did have it as definitions, like there was a header, called definitions, and then it did vehicles, staff, and like those two sections were all definitions, so we can add that back if you want. Like just the header.
Yeah.
And then it looks like ours is 71 to 77 for the school bus size.
Yes.
Okay. And then for the school van,
So we
so I
just-
saw, do you wanna explain that?
Yeah, so
comment?
right now it's less than 8, but there's legislation for it to be changed, so we thought it was best just not to put a number in there, because it could be different state to state, and they're looking to change the legislation around it. Our vans currently are 8 or less. So we thought, let's not specify it right now, because there are changes that are coming that may that could happen, and I didn't know if it really
Yeah.
was necessary to have to put the number of, the occupancy number in the definition in the policy, because that could change.
Yeah, I pulled that thing of that if less than 8, and this would be considered a pupil transportation vehicle, because it does matter for the licensures that the drivers need, which I know you know. So that's why I had to find them by size, because if you do go over 8, even if it is a van, it changes classification. So, and that is the current law, like that definition came from, I think, the law, and so I would leave it, and then if it changes, I would amend it, like, I hear what you're saying, but like legislation gets put up all the time, but it doesn't pass, and so I don't know. If we're defining the other ones by size, and that one matters because of the license, I would keep
Cause
it.
you need a different license depending on the size, right?
Yeah, so if you drive a school van, you don't need the same license that you
Right,
need
just
for,
need a chauffeur
A
license.
minibus.
yeah, so I would leave it. Rob or Jen, thoughts?
I agree with you, like, like you said, legislation might be changed, isn't the same thing as it is changed. If it does change, we can always revise the policy.
So do we wanna write it for what we have, or,
Yeah, I mean, like you can see above, I wrote like usually from 8 to 30 seats for the mini school buses, so we could define it as like a school van like is 8 or less. Cause that's not even like what ours are, like that's just what the law dictates, is that part of it.
So if it's more than 8 seats, you need a different license,
It's a mini
correct?
school bus.
Yeah. Okay, and then you all updated that or changed the statewide transportation
Statewide.
definition, perfect.
My only question on that was, did we wanna say, like, the way that's written, it kinda makes it sound like North Kingstown is not one of them, like, did we wanna say including North Kingstown that need assistance, because we do utilize it? Like, the way it's written, it kinda makes it seem like,
Yeah, who needs this, like can't afford their own buses, energy.
or like
Or-
other people,
yeah.
right, like it's,
Kim, what was your thought on that change? Cause I took that definition like directly from something from RIDE.
Well, yeah, it was on the
Like the student
website,
tra-
that
yeah.
line was actually on the website, we
The one I typed or the one you typed?
No, the one you
Yeah.
typed. That was
Yeah.
right, that was on their
Yeah.
website. I mean, it's a service that is provided, it's not something that is mandated or required, we don't have a contract with them to provide transportation directly to our students, where some districts do have contracts. We're using them for, transportation that would be for students that are going out of district to specialized programs, not to charters, private schools. We provide that busing ourselves. The reason why I chose to word it that way, because it's a service that they can provide if there's a need. I mean, we do use statewide transportation for, right now, for specialized programs that are out of district.
like, if I didn't know anything about our transportation and I read this policy, I would not think, just reading this, that we used it the way that it's written. Like, I would think all of our transportation was ours. That's the only reason why I say that, like,
So that's why I wrote, and we can change it, I just wrote the state of Rhode Island, Department of Education, like student transportation system for students attending schools outside their district. We could write outside our district, we could write
But
it
we wanna
different.
be careful, because it's not, like, it's specific, right? We don't wanna just say outside, because if we say outside, the student might think, okay, so you're gonna use statewide, so I want my child's going to Proud. Well, you need to put them on statewide. Well, we provide that transportation through our bus
Yeah.
contractors, right? So I think my suggestion would be then to specify, I was putting currently North Kingstown School Department uses statewide transportation for, out-of-district for out-of-district students attending specialized programs.
or even say North Kingstown may use, right?
Mhm.
Like, that
Yeah.
way it's, leaving it open, it's not locking us in. Just, I think something that shows that, like,
I love when the law for May. Yes, May is a great word. It's your, like, Andrew always likes the word May as well. Sometimes, could.
From time to time.
I would say, yeah, may use statewide transportation for,
Let me finish it first. Okay. So currently, North Kingstown School Department may use statewide transportation for out-of-district specialized programs.
But I would take out currently and just say North
Yeah.
Kingstown may use. And then my next question would be like, does, this policy does not apply to statewide transportation?
what do you mean?
Like, does our,
Oh, yeah. No,
It's private
is that?
transportation that we pay for, so we don't control that, you know what I
Right.
mean, so
yeah,
it's.
So what Jen's saying is like if you were a parent reading this and you were like, oh, they're supposed to do X, like in theory, like the statewide
So I guess-
drivers and whatnot are not
So then-
under that.
So you bring up a really good
Yeah.
point. So then why would we put this in here? Because this is the policy for our transportation services and our programming. I would just remove it. This isn't about like all the the policy isn't about all the transportation services we provide. It's about providing transportation, right, of what we provide. So since this policy is strictly for North Kingstown School Department transportation, I would just remove it so that there's no confusion. I don't think it's necessary then to put it in there.
I just
Disagree.
disagree, but I do think we could just because I think when you're talking about transportation and we're talking about how we make transport students, if a family questioned that, you would want the policy to oversee it. So if they were, if we don't say anywhere in our transportation policy anything about using this, and then they have an issue with us using that, like it's not documented anywhere, so I would leave it in, but maybe just put a sentence saying like, statewide is a private, like it's a, like, entity that is something, I don't know, lawyery, that like says. It's different.
Statewide isn't
Yeah.
under our jurisdiction.
Yeah, it's like a contracted
Right.
service.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it operates outside of the North
Yeah.
Kingstown jurisdiction.
right, yeah, like something like, their policies and procedures apply.
Mhm.
Something like that. But I do think because we're saying that this policy covers all student transportation, you're right, like, some of our students are transported under them, and so we should mention that, like, cause we're saying some of them go on a bus, some of them go on a minibus, and some of
Mhm.
them go on somebody else's bus, and I
Mhm.
think that matters.
How could we, Laura?
I was just thinking about it, like, I don't think you wanna say that your policy doesn't apply at all, because I think you have some obligations, like, maybe like under 504, like there could be certain obligations that you would still maintain,
Yeah.
even though you're using the statewide transportation system. But you're right, like, you don't have control over what they're doing, but you'd still have, potentially obligations
Yeah.
to the students. Do you reference this anywhere else in the policy? I just did a search on it, I didn't.
Probably not right now, but when I was originally drafting it, I was thinking that we should have a section that kind of, when we're talking about how students get assigned, like where they get assigned buses and bus stops and different things, that we probably should reference that category. I just didn't get to kind of zhuzhing it out, for lack of a better word.
Do we have like a contract with statewide?
No.
I'm cringing
I have
right
one,
now.
I have one note on my paper right now that says, do we have a contract with statewide, question mark? Yeah, so,
Yeah, let me think about it
Yeah.
for a minute or two.
alright, I'm gonna make a note just to come back to, like, not today, but like, that we need to, cause to Ten's point, if we're not referencing it in the document, it probably shouldn't be in there, but also, it probably should be in there for a couple reasons, so we can
Yeah.
work through that. Alright, so we'll come back to that for the interest of time. So Ken, one of the questions that I had on the notes that you all made
was under, on page 1, under bus drivers, you had written down, the unsecured part, and I knew we don't have seatbelts, but I wasn't sure if secured was referencing to like making sure wheelchairs were secured or things like that, and so that's why I had,
So that's why.
Typed it in?
Yep, so
Okay.
it's not under bus driver, but if you
Yep.
look at minibus, we added a whole title for minibus driver, cause they're different. So the bus
Oh,
driver
okay.
responsibilities for the big bus is
Got it.
different than the minibus, and in the minibus, it is there.
Cause we would never put a wheelchair on a big bus.
Nope.
yeah, they
Yeah.
don't, they're not
Okay.
fit, yeah,
And there's no
Alright, that makes
seatbelts
sense.
either.
Okay.
So we added a whole other section.
alright, perfect. So then for bus driver, should we? So who drives vans for like, Like-
Van would be someone with a chauffeur license.
yeah, but in this policy,
Yeah, we don't have van driver in here, we don't have driver for the definition, we don't have that defined.
yeah.
I had two questions on the bus driver. It says that the bus driver is responsible for monitoring student behavior during transit. And I guess one of my questions was, if they're driving, how are they supposed to monitor student behavior?
That came right from something,
Okay,
either the, I can't remember where I pulled that from specifically, either the ride,
okay,
cause I didn't write that, cause I think
Okay.
the same thing.
Okay.
But then when thinking about if a bus doesn't have a monitor, like our high school buses don't have monitors, they are responsible for that, in theory.
that's kind of alarming, but
Yeah.
okay. So
Kinda
that,
Rob, what do you?
No, they are responsible
Yeah.
for
Mhm.
that, the drivers, it is a responsibility of theirs.
and then my other question.
And I agree, yes, they're driving the bus, but they also are responsible for, if something they'd have to stop, pull the bus over and
Okay. And then my other question was, it says it's the bus driver's responsibility to conduct a thorough inspection of the bus after each trip. So, I would like, I guess, can we define what is a trip?
trip. So that's the language they use, so it'd be every route, right? So I'm a bus driver and I.
You know why I'm asking this?
Mhm.
Yeah, so I would like that spelled out.
And so I do my run to Forest Park. I should be checking the bus before I leave there. And then I do my run for Fishing Cove. I should be checking my bus before I leave there. And I do my run to
So maybe we should,
middle school, check the bus, and then I bring it back to where the bus is going to be, and I check the bus again before I get off.
so maybe,
Like route, not trip, maybe?
I was thinking even more specifically, like, anytime, just follow me, I'm not gonna quite get it right here, but like, anytime that like, you go to a school and the bus
Lets people off.
should be empty. Like, you know what I mean, like, I'm trying to figure out like the policy way to say that, but like, cause to me, like, a trip would be the whole thing. Like, or,
Right,
and a
like when
route,
you're
yeah, like,
bringing it
Right.
home.
I mean,
yeah,
use the
like
word
home,
trip,
like, yeah, like you're going back
run.
to the yard kind of
It could
energy,
be
like, that's not
when
what we're talking
going to
about.
know, but it could be after each run, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they know what bus runs are. They have their bus runs that they're
Do we
doing. Their bus runs are each
Add that to the definition.
Yeah,
so
100%.
that
you know?
they're doing, right?
I
So
would
that
like to
would be-
have it a little bit more
Yep.
I thought we had narrowed it down and apparently we haven't, so I'd like to get it a little bit more specific.
Yeah. I just wrote down on my notes, define trip/run.
Yeah.
And I can draft something kind of, and Michelle, and you can kind of take a look at it.
Maybe language around like
I-
spec-
I'll be honest, I'd have Michelle define it. I mean, if we're gonna be defining this, I would have
Great.
transportation.
Yep.
I mean, just to
Add
save
it.
you and then that.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's fine.
have
I was
to
just
put
trying to
that
save
in
her
there.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I appreciate it. I
so-
think I just,
Yeah, so if you could have her define trip, if that's the word we're gonna use, and then make sure in that definition that she understands that we want really tight language of like, anytime the bus should be empty, the bus driver should be checking in, even if it's not their final destination.
Yeah.
Well, I wanna make sure are we saying the same thing here in terms of, we're talking about when a bus has dropped students off at the intended location
Mhm.
and,
Yep.
and it is now empty. Is that that's what we're
Yeah.
talking about,
Yes, it's
correct?
supposed to be empty.
It's supposed to be empty, right, so it's like we've completed our final,
Yes, even if like, even if then they're leaving to go do another run somewhere, like they're not finished for the day, they're not,
so we're looking to define what it means when the bus is now empty,
yes.
should be empty,
Yes, should be empty, yeah, even if it's not finished their entire.
right,
I
right,
think the two elementary schools is a good example. Like they do an
Right.
early school, they empty out at, what's an early one? Quid. And then they are going to do another run for Forest Park. Like, I think what you're saying, Jen, is in between, we would like them, a bus driver checking, making sure no one's on the bus, and we need to define that in the
Yeah.
policy so that it's really
Yep.
clear to everybody.
Yeah, I get it.
Alright,
Yeah.
okay, so you'll have Michelle do that. Okay, perfect. I think, Jen, was that the only questions you had on the bus driver part?
Yes, thank you.
So with the line that you all added about the school bus drivers are contacted through NKSD and report to the supervisor of transportation, is that trying to allude to families that we don't want them talking directly to their bus drivers on page 1 at the bottom?
Hold on 1 second, I was just.
Okay.
so the red
Yeah,
school bus drivers are contracted through NKC to report to the supervisor of transportation.
Okay, what page?
page 1 bottom, school bus drivers are contacted through NKSD and report to the
Contracted.
Contract.
Contracted, excuse me. Never mind, ignore everything I just said. Was that not somewhere else?
Where are these?
Oh.
We want, because bus
Yeah.
drivers are
Yeah,
have
because,
contracts,
because we don't
mini bus drivers
own any
are
large buses.
employees.
Yep, okay, that makes sense
I think we have that in there.
for the other one too.
Yeah, mini bus drivers are NKSD employees and report to the supervisor.
Got
of
it, perfect.
transportation.
That is where I was going in my brain, got it. So for that asterisk about the variances, is that where, do we wanna put the asterisk next to,
It was within, I think it was within bus monitor, and we just wanted to separate it so that way it was noticeable, and that's why we,
yep,
it is a separate.
so maybe. I just do this. So that at least people know. So what's the difference between the mini bus driver definition and the bus driver definition?
The mini bus driver definition has more in there about safety and, hold on, let me go back. So if you look at the first paragraph, under mini bus driver, has
Yeah, I don't.
the other responsibility. In addition, mini bus drivers are often familiar with individual students' requirements, enabling them to provide personalized assistance, including securing wheelchairs, mobility devices, and offering emotional support. So that's the difference between a mini bus driver and a bus driver. Because you're not securing wheelchairs, mobility devices.
The rest of those two paragraphs are identical to above then?
So look and check.
Cause my recommendation would be, if they are identical, except for that, in addition to under bus drivers, having that paragraph and then having like a space and then having it say like, additionally, mini bus drivers are responsible, and then just that one thing, so it's, cause again, I don't wanna have duplicate language and then have to make sure that they always match. Cause if, heaven forbid, we miss something in the future and then it's not in there, so I'm not opposed to the additional language of that, in addition, mini bus drivers are, but if everything else is the same, I would just add it as like a little piece underneath bus driver, personally. And then we could also do that one other part, which is the mini bus drivers are NKSD employees. Like those two are the only difference that I see.
Yeah, that's the only. Yeah, that's the only difference.
Okay. Is that okay with you, Ken? If we just do it like that, just to keep it cleaner? I'll edit that later. Okay, and then for the bus aid, you all changed the title from bus assistant to bus aid, which is totally fine. Is that how we like advertise it when we're hiring? We use the word aid? Cause I don't think I got the word assistant, like, I don't think I made that up, like, I think I saw that somewhere.
Yeah, no,
Referred to as
it
bus
is,
TA has been.
Yeah, like, cause it's
Yeah,
teacher
but-
assistant,
Yeah.
so I wrote like bus assistant.
but the
But
bus
I don't
aid
think I
came
even
up
wrote that. Yeah.
somewhere
Do not
because-
care, I just wanna be consistent,
Yeah,
like,
no,
I don't
it
care
is-
what,
It is bus aid, I'm trying to remember where that,
Because I remember we asked this question, because it was used interchangeably, and we asked,
Yeah, again, potato, but I just want us to be consistent, like if we're posting jobs with job descriptions under one name, I
Yeah.
want it to be the same in the
Yep,
policy, I
yep.
don't care which one.
yeah,
Do we, shouldn't
bus
we
aid-
have it up right now as a job on school, whatever?
Because I'm just looking at what I have here in front of me, but we have bus aids on other documents here.
I do not wanna sign it. But I'll double check it,
trying to remember what the job descriptions were when we had them.
I have it, I just don't have it here, so we don't need to waste time on it, I'll just double check it, and again, if we wanna go with bus aid, and that's what Michelle's preference is, that's fine, we'll just make sure we're consistent across the board.
There's a job description on the website, special education bus teacher assistant,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I thought. Okay,
but that's just for special.
no, that's what we're talking about.
This one, okay.
Yeah.
My preference would be to change it, because then it gets the confusion over teacher assistant, they
Yeah, that
are
makes no
teacher
sense.
assistants, and it should be bus aid. I just thought it was written somewhere else, but I'm not seeing it.
That's okay, I'll just make a note, how about I make a note
Yeah,
on
we'll
the
just-
title
we'll
for
just-
you to
we'll
talk
just make
to
sure that
Stephanie and
changed
Michelle, just to make
job
sure
descriptions.
that the job postings, you know what I mean? Cause I agree with you, it shouldn't say bus teacher assistant, that makes absolutely no sense, cause they're not assistant teachers, but,
Yeah, it should just be consistent all the way through.
Laura, if you have that job up, can you just drop it in the comment?
Yeah,
And
I just lost it.
Oh, that's okay, no, we can go back and get it, I just was trying to make it easy for you.
Not to jump ahead, but we may wanna put the bus trip definition closer to the top, because if we're referring to bus trips
Mm-hmm.
in some of those sections, we might wanna just have that before we
Yeah,
refer.
after, like after vehicles.
Yeah,
Erin, where did you want me to?
Oh, just put it like, see where it says bus aid on page 2? I wrote a comment that just said Ken will check on this, like for the title, if you
Oh,
just wanna
okay.
drop in the link for him,
Yeah.
either attached to that comment or as a
Yep.
new comment, that way we'll just have it. Yeah, Rob, we can move that up. Probably after the buses.
I don't know if I can't edit it. If I request,
I'd say I have,
Okay.
I have.
I'll give you
so
access.
I'll know what that
Alright.
means.
You should be good now.
Okay. Anything else that people have for bus aid other than the title? So again, they're not responsible for securing wheelchairs or mobility devices, that's the
It is the driver.
driver's
Yeah.
responsibility. Do they assist with it?
Don't know if they assist, but it's the driver that's doing it. I mean, they're there. I'd have to check.
Yeah.
To see.
Okay. So you all don't want, so you removed conflict resolution from the trainings?
Yes, because we don't do conflict resolution, but we do the other stuff that I listed in there, so I'm just
Okay.
putting notes on another document.
Where did we land on restraint training?
We are not providing that training right now to all drivers for restraint training. I think I said that last time. We are doing it for those drivers that need it based on the students on their bus.
Can we add that?
Into the policy,
Mm-hmm.
thought I had, hold on, let me see what I didn't put safety care in there. Well, I didn't put safety care as the specific.
So we're gonna add safety care, is that what
No,
we're hearing?
no, don't, that's the
Okay.
name of the specific training. Uh,
It's the drawer.
What?
The drawer.
Oh, okay, that makes me feel better.
I was wondering the same thing.
Okay, as long as it's not just
I
me.
don't hear it, but I know that it's beeping, so.
You're like used to it.
I think that's why I had added it, cause when I look up safety care, it's crisis management training is like the definition of safety care training. Like that's how they defined it, so I think that's why I had originally written it like that, but I don't care, but I do think it is important that we include that. So that if a restraint does need to happen, either expected or unexpected, that they at least have a baseline for what would be appropriate or not appropriate.
So I'm putting up here the de-escalation strategies, because that would be part of the that's part of the training that Rachel has done with them. And then another line that physical restraint will be provided on an as-needed basis.
Thank you.
For the documentation of staff training, staying with the supervisor of transportation, is that the same like procedure that we follow for, like, if the math department does a training, does the department chair keep that, or
would
does
be
it?
the principal, because they're not an administrator.
Yeah, okay, that makes
So
sense.
it goes to the direct
Yeah.
support, the
Okay,
direct-
so it's consistent,
Mhm.
that's all I was looking for, okay.
Is it, but it's not, well, is it possible to have those training records kept electronically?
Yeah, we're looking at how we're going to, like, set that up moving forward. So it could be something, right now it's, she put cards together and, that she's keeping on everyone and putting down the training that they're doing. It could be electronic. Yeah, I mean, it can be.
Okay, I
What's
think,
your thought on that?
yeah,
I think Jen's question is, her thought, is that she thinks it should be electronic.
it absolutely
yeah,
should be
versus-
electronic versus, I mean, what we saw were Post-it notes and like photocopies and like, there's no way to easily access, you know, who has what training. And it should be electronic, so that you can easily look up who had training and like when was the last time they had it.
Yeah, right now what she's putting together is a binder with the cards for each driver and monitor,
Yeah.
so has it all in a binder of what's, and she, she's keeping track. I mean, it's not gonna be like what we were going through from the past years.
Yeah.
Because a lot of that also was pre-Michelle too.
Yeah.
So I wanna make sure that we're not just,
Some of it was post.
Yeah, I mean, moving forward, I think an electronic,
What I'm hearing is it's not going to be though, Jen, so
Yeah.
that's a decision I think the school committee,
Yeah,
if
I
it's a
know,
policy or
yeah,
not, like
yeah,
it's.
yeah, I mean, I think, how is the training for the coaches handled?
Like,
you mean like how we're documenting like that they've completed that?
Mm-hmm.
Typically, they
So
get a printout
they-
from,
Well,
the course they
Yeah.
so it's two ways, right? So you have the training that they're doing that's on computer, there's certificates that we get and we file that away.
Mm-hmm.
And then the training that they're doing with us for the Title IX, they're signing in and we have that.
And how do we keep track of that and how do we verify that it's all up to date?
We do it every single year and we have those documents.
So
That we're
there's no
reviewing.
online database of that either?
No.
Okay.
okay, so let's just leave it like this for now, and then if we wanna circle back on that, we can. Okay, so for the, radical mile, we just crossed off
radio.
a radial, thank you. You all just crossed that off,
Yeah, it's just
but
gonna
does
be,
that,
so we're not doing the radial mile,
Yeah.
we're just doing just mile from the straight mile distance.
yeah. So,
It really doesn't change anything, cause when you're looking at it, we're providing transportation to almost everyone. Even, so when you look at what a radial mile is, and then you look at miles going directly from a person's home to the school, it's not going to change.
okay, so we don't think that's gonna make it less, like, it won't impact the number of students that are getting transported, is what you're saying? Okay. And we don't wanna reference transportation for pre-K at all?
Well, we pulled it out because transportation is not required for preschool.
Yeah,
The
I
only
think-
transportation that we would be requiring, and that's through an IEP team decision, so I think, if we put something in there, and that was the other thing, we need to add a section here about students with disabilities and transportation for students with disabilities, that is done completely separately through an IEP team decision. decision. And I think, right, what I just said there is like pretty much what we would put in there. The policy can't dictate how we do transportation for students with disabilities.
No, it's, oh,
And
yeah,
that-
no.
And that would be the same for preschool, because if you put something in that says pre-K, then people are gonna think, oh, you're providing transportation for all preschoolers, and
No,
that's not true.
I was going to write like not provided. Like I think we should clearly state that like for pre-K,
But I think.
there,
if we-
it
if
doesn't
we-
matter where you, how close you live, how close you don't live, you're not getting transported to the school unless you have it as part of an IEP.
But I also agree
Or
that
before.
by not putting it, it makes it very clear that transportation is just kindergarten through 12th grade. And I think then under a section around transportation for transportation for students with disabilities, we can then note that students that are in the preschool program.
I think it's better to, instead of just having it not be there, be clear about it, because I do think that as a mom of a person who went through the pre-K program, there was a lot of confusion among the pre-K parents about like why some kids got buses, why some kids didn't, and then it increased conversation about that. And I do think that it's just better to be clear about it, but I would also defer to the
No,
committee on it,
I
but just
agree.
from what I hear, like what I remember hearing people say, like, it might just be better to be clear about why only certain students, like just saying like pre-K, like something about not provided or only provided, you know, based on IEP/504 if needed or something.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, that would go under a section. My suggestion is to put it under the section where we put in transportation for students with disabilities. It'll be there, but I think it should go under that section.
What if we put under pre-K, if we put like C section, blah, blah, blah?
I just wouldn't put it, I think it's gonna cause more confusion by putting pre-K there. I would leave it out and then have a section for students with disabilities and explain there the transportation requirements for preschool students. It's still in the policy, it's just in a different section.
Okay.
It's your policy, so put it wherever you want. I feel like we're just gonna be debating this back and forth. If you want it there, put it there. I just,
We're allowed to have different opinions
I
than you.
understand that, but I'm just,
It's fine.
you've asked us as the professionals
Yeah.
to look at it and put it in, and I feel like what I put out there for suggestion, people, well, I don't,
That's-
so it's a school committee policy. If you want it there, then put it there.
I have a question that I'm not sure if this changes anything. I had a question about the next paragraph, accessibility accommodation. And are you getting to a 504 accommodation there with that policy? Or are you trying to, or is it like what is a qualifying temporary disability?
So that's what, so that we were trying to, I'll be honest, like Michelle and I were trying to figure out what that
Mhm.
section was there, and that's why we put in temporary, because it would be different than a student with a permanent disability needing transportation. So it would get to the point if a student has a temporary disability, and if we have to write a temporary 504, we would do that.
Like if
So
they
this
broke
would
their
be-
leg or something
Exactly,
and
right. This would
needed-
be if someone, they broke their leg, they had some type of temporary physical disability, which means they can't walk to the bus stop, or they
This
need
specific-
transportation to.
This specific section was, and you have to remember, I was adopting the old policy, so like, not all of this came from organic, and this was in, and this is specifically under reference for eligibility for transportation services. So this, I think, in the old policy was referencing, if you're a walker and you normally walk to school, but then you break your leg, then you can get eligibility for it, cause it was in connection with.
That's the, we understand.
Yeah, it was in connection with the mile part, like the radial mile
Mhm.
part, so like that's how I was interpreting it, like they were saying, okay, but it was not as nicely written here, like it was not, up to date to like modern standards of how we talk about students with temporary disabilities, and so like the language is different, but like I think it is in reference with that, under the cause it's under the heading of eligibility, so it's not like long-term things, I think it's like like to Ken's point, like temporary things. Laura, do you think we should be more explicit about it?
No, you know, I
or-
guess I wasn't paying attention to the heading.
Yeah.
I was looking at it. I might. I was wondering when I read it, like, what do you mean, like, do you have a separate, like, 504 policy, or it's, I was wondering, and what would qualify as a is this within the discretion of the, like, just as a parent, like, when you're reading this, like, what would qualify it, what do you mean by temporary disability?
When I read this, I was like, what if I have a permanent disability? Like, what happens then? Like, that, reading just temporary disability here and not, like, discussing non-temporary disabilities was confusing to me.
I was also, when I originally wrote it, I didn't write temporary because I was also thinking of beyond physical disabilities, like if a student had, like, the, kind of going to the point of like the 504s and the IEPs, like they had an anxiety disorder that made it so that they couldn't walk to school for whatever reason or whatnot, like they might be eligible for transportation. So I wasn't just thinking physical restraints, but perhaps things beyond that. And so I definitely think we need to add some language, no matter what, about like referencing 504s and IEPs, no matter how we keep it.
I mean,
You could have
why
like
don't
a
you put that all in?
a section like transportation accommodations, cause you also have like you have another possible avenue like for a safety accommodation too. Or you
Yeah.
could have a separate, but like Ken, you were talking about like a policy for students with disabilities, you could put 504 into there too, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
You
I
could
was
just make
reading
that-
it.
Take that whole section and that way it's all within that same section around
I mean, it's all under.
accessibility, safety.
Yeah, I mean, it's all under eligibility. So I was thinking of it as like eligibility.
Yeah.
You get transportation if you live beyond these areas. You get transportation if you have an accessibility accommodation. You get transportation if you have a safety accommodation. So like, for example, if you're near the high school and you live close, but like there's no sidewalk, like that counts, right? Even if you're within the mile. And so I was thinking of it in that way, but if you all think it would be clearer in a different way, we can change it. But it's all underneath it. It's all eligibility in my head. If that makes sense. But I do think we need to put something, I don't think it should just be temporary disability, but I do think we could reference that this could be something that is just temporary. Like we could put, like, you know, if a student needs, like, transportation accommodations, like, the way to seek those out is through, you would know the language again, but like through
Right, so
conversations with,
right, well, so any student
Yeah.
that has a disability, transportation is part of the IEP, so it's gonna be part
Yeah.
of the IEP team discussion when it gets to that point, as well as within a 504.
Yep.
You would discuss things, that would all be part of the decision-making that's happening at a 504 meeting and an IEP meeting. If the child is eligible for special transportation.
Cause really you have eligibility, right, and then you have accommodations and exceptions, right, exceptions to the eligibility and accommodations, so that's, because it's not just accommodations, you have exceptions to the eligibility, and that's kind of the three buckets, right?
Yeah.
Even if you had, like, a student that has like a temporary disability, let's say it's, you know, physical, they may not be going on the large bus, it might be a minibus that's picking them up.
Right.
yeah, so if they normally have transportation on a large bus, the accommodation would be this
Or let's say
smaller.
they have a wheelchair
Yeah.
for 2 months.
Yeah.
We'd have to set up the transportation using minibus with wheelchair accessibility.
Alright, I can work on tweaking the language here. Based on, like, beyond even what we wrote here. Okay. Ken, to your question about where is that safety accommodation from? Most certainly not for me. Where did I get that from? would you like, what would you want tweaked in it?
Well,
It came from somewhere.
Because we were just going through and thinking, okay,
Yeah.
how are we defining this? So how are we defining busy streets? And I think I put in there, like, we have Ten Rock Road, Post Road, Tower Hill Road. It might be Devil's Foot Road. So we have kids that live on all of those roads. And we have bus routes that currently go through there and busing is provided. We have stops on those roads as well. So reading this, we're concerned that that then means, okay, so now we can't put bus stops on those roads. Where are we gonna pick up children? How's that gonna impact the efficiency of our bus routes and timing of bus routes?
This was all under the eligibility piece though. It's not under like where bus stops are or whatnot, it's like, if you live within a mile of Forest Park, or within 5/8 of a mile of Forest Park, but you have to walk on Post Road, like, that might be a place where the district, the supervisor of transportation would say, no, like, that's not safe, like, these kids get a bus even though it's within the mile, like, that, it's not all encompassing about that, it's the eligibility piece. Does that make sense, or no?
That we, even though technically you only have to walk a half a mile, that half mile is on Post Road,
Yeah.
so we're gonna pick you up.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what it says,
That's
and
what
this is old, that did not come from me specifically, like, that's a current practice right now, from my understanding.
Okay.
It might have been, but so, we can make it more vague if you want, we can,
No, as long as it's just in there pertaining to the eligibility of being put on of
Yep.
being able to take a bus for, and if, I'm wondering if we should specify
yeah, here, I'll
here
do
that
this.
this is, if you live less than the required miles of transportation, exceptions may be made based on the following concerns, or.
yeah, so right now, so I just put the word eligibility, cause we seem collectively to be having a hard time, like, like, so now I wrote like accessibility, eligibility accommodations, safety eligibility accommodations, like, so that we're, even though it's under the eligibility header, like, we can still keep track of that piece. But then, so, an exception to the transportation distance requirements may be granted for students if there are safety concerns. Such concerns may include, but are not limited to, blah, blah, blah. The decision to grant this exception will be made by the supervisor of transportation. So, do you want that, do you want something changed there?
No, I think you explained it.
Okay. You sure?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a similar concern when I was reading it too, like, opening the door to, like, so I pulled the statute, like, on what that, and I worked on a case over the summer
Mhm.
on this, had to do with transportation on, like, a dirt road in Foster. So the duty is, so, like, you, as the school committee, potentially have a duty, even if it's under the whatever
Mhm.
distance requirement you've set, to provide transportation if it's impractical or unsafe for the student to walk. So you would have to do that, like, no
Is
matter.
there
Yeah.
language, I'm wondering if there is that language, maybe that's the language we use.
Yeah,
like
so
Where did
like-
that
calling
come
it
from?
right
So
there.
it's Rhode Island General Law 16-21-1,
Yeah,
subparagraph A.
alright, we can just
So-
use that language then. Let's see, paragraph A, 16.
And it also talks about physical disability or infirmity too, so you could maybe.
Where, I don't see it, but I 100% believe you. What did you say it was?
So it's the
Impractical and-
first paragraph, so
Yeah.
the school committee shall provide suitable transportation, so to and for pupils attending the public school, who reside so far from the public or private school that the pupil attends as to make the pupil's regular attendance at school impractical, and for any pupil whose regular attendance would otherwise be impracticable on account of physical disability or infirmity. So, like, despite your, it doesn't, so
It's basically saying no matter what you write,
no matter
you
what,
have to do it.
if it's not practical for that
yeah.
student to get to school, so like, and it's gonna depend on their age.
Yeah.
It's gonna depend on like, so it's, yeah, like a 5-year-old, like a kindergartner, it's gonna be completely different, that assessment. But I'm just worried too, like if you have something in here, are you locking yourself into having to all of a sudden have all these buses go out? I mean, it hasn't happened since you've had this policy in place, so, but,
I don't understand what you're saying, sorry.
like
the last part.
yeah, like just to open the door to like additional requests for special transportation from walkers. But you said that you've had this in
Yeah.
existence for a while and
Sorry,
that
look,
hasn't
it's not,
happened.
it's not in, I couldn't find it in the current policy, but I think what Erin means is like practice, like through practice, like we've
Done that.
made accommodations
Yes.
for those that need it. But I also kinda
No, I think that there's,
think about the language that's in that regulation, I copied at the bottom, so it's there, sticking to this similar language,
you
maybe,
can change it.
in that way.
This was somewhere, like I did not write, not in our policy maybe, but a policy had the things, like I didn't write busy streets or absence of sidewalk, like that came from somewhere. But it doesn't have to be like that, so you can change it to however you want. I think the biggest thing for me is, you know, making sure that students know, like, if there are concerns that they can bring them forward, which is why I think being, like, I think our duty is to, like you said, make sure that they're good, and like, I wanted to have the policy be clearer than less vague, so that if families are like concerned about something, that they know that they have the right to ask for it, and then it can be denied. Like the director of supervisor of transportation could say no, but I was trying to give them like a sense of like, hey, these are some things that could cause an exception to be made for eligibility. But we can also, you can make it, you could change it. Like I'm not wedded to it. I just think I saw it somewhere and I said, oh, that kind of makes sense to me that you would write it like that. So Ken, do you want me to make a note that you're gonna edit it?
My suggestion is just using the language that's in 1621-1, so that way it's not different from what the expectation is of the school committee for providing transportation.
I just think so, okay. So we write an exception to transportation distance requirements may be granted for a student if there are safety concerns related to their walking route. How are you, so then, for any pupil whose regular attendance would be otherwise like, you know what I mean, like that doesn't make sense to our community members, I don't think, if we just drop that sentence in.
Yeah, I mean, the way that you wrote it is definitely easier to understand, I think. Like, I mean, I think it's getting to the same point, like, you could,
Like, we could do like a vaguer, we could have,
you could say that like, exceptions to the transportation distance requirements are made, for any students whose regular attendance is impractical on account of, like, safety concerns related to their route and or physical disability, or, you know, like tie the two together. And you could provide examples too, like you have, if you want to.
I'm Googling the definition of impracticable
So,
versus impractical, which is, they're not the same. Cause impracticable, the longer one that the law references, means something that is not capable of being done.
our current policy just says if a safety factor is involved, the school department may waive the walking distance requirement and provide transportation.
Yeah, we could do that.
That leaves it a little
Little
vaguer,
vaguer,
but
yeah.
lets people know that we will do it if
Well, it will be considered.
will be considered, yeah. It's open for
Do you want to just put
discussion.
that? Is that a,
Yeah, I would prefer that, I think, for two reasons. One, it's sticking to the language that's in the regs, and two, I think when we start listing examples,
yep,
it kind of holds our hands of, well, it's in the policy and that's a busy street, or that's a wooded area, you know? And I think we wanna be careful at putting something in place that,
helps us keep students safe.
no, that's not what I'm
You know what I mean?
saying.
Like-
What I'm
like-
saying is then.
I know what you're
now
saying, but
having to provide transportation to almost everyone.
yeah,
And if that's the route we're going, that's one thing, but that, then we need to consider how many buses we have, and budgetarily, is that gonna impact services, and
yeah.
that's all, I'm kinda thinking like way out, like what could be the potential impact of putting some of this language in the policy.
Yeah. I was just thinking like, so it's just such a gray area, like if the supervisor of transportation's meet, like if there's no like parameters for what that means, like it's just a person's judgment call.
Maybe we spell that out
Versus-
in it, right, like, so, you know, may waive the walking distance, you know, and spell out for the parent that it can be appealed. That way it's just not dead ending at the director of transportation and the policy, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, those decisions can be appealed directly to RIDE, once, like,
yeah, once it goes all the way through.
Yeah.
Right, but even just letting the
I think-
parents
did
know
I-
that
did we
like
do it in this
they can
policy or a
appeal
different
it through
policy?
here first. So that if they hear a no, they don't just, they know they
Okay,
can
so
go a little bit more.
Cause right,
I
I
can't
mean,
remember
what
if it
happens
was-
is if they go through transportation departments, no, this is, you know, these are our policies, what we're doing, then it comes to me, make a decision, and
So
then
I
if I
did
say no, then it goes to school committee.
I did add that to this policy. It's on page 7 at the very bottom for student, parent, and guardian feedback. I had put concerns regarding bus service and safety should be directed to the supervisor of transportation. If the issue is not resolved to the satisfaction of concerns party, an appeal process will be available, allowing individuals to escalate their concerns to the superintendent, ultimately the school committee for further review of resolution. So I did put that in at the very bottom so that people did understand, one, to go to the supervisor of transportation, I think it's important to give them that first step, and then what they process based on our other policies are. So I don't think we have to put it more than
Okay.
once, like I think we just, why don't we put the language back in from the old policy, just kind of the more vague version of it, taking out the examples to Ken's request, and then we can add in the other two, that sentence from the reg about the other piece, and then so that way, that would be like probably a good compromise.
Yep, I think so.
Is that okay, Ken? Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good, thank you.
So, okay, where are we? So for bus routes,
So the 30/90 is in the regs, so. that would
Yes.
say-
yeah, we have to do it by then. Okay,
I had a question, it says, and I know this is splitting hairs, but within 90 days of the start of the year, is that within 90 days or no later than 90 days after?
Uh,
it's It's
within 90 days of the start of the year.
So technically, that could be 90 days before the start of the year.
Yeah, we kinda went back more with like the way it's written, but it's right out of the regulations
Okay.
of the using the word within.
Where are you getting, Jen? That you think it's weird that it's so late?
No, I'm saying that I think the intent is that, like, there's no way it's gonna be 90 days before the start of the year, right?
Right. And especially when it's 30 days that the,
Start of the school
Roots are
year,
done,
right?
yeah.
So,
we give it to them as soon as we have it, we give it to them before school starts. But essentially, you wanna know, and that was my practice in J-Town too, you kinda wanna know before you start the
right.
school year.
Do we wanna put in a like,
Cause we were gonna change it, we're like, oh, 90 days is too long, and we were gonna keep it like 30-30. But then when we pulled the regs, that's what it says, so we're like, well, let's not change it, because that's what's in that's the wording from the, I think it was 16.
that's definitely the wording from the thing,
Okay.
but that's why I wrote, like, is this the number we want? Like, obviously, we can't go 91 days,
Yeah,
but like,
I was just gonna
the-
say no later than 90 days
Yep. Or
after
ideal,
the
like,
start of the year.
the projected school bus routes, like, shall be sent to the local police chief. You could put something in, like, ideally prior to the school year, like, the start of the
Yeah.
school year, but no later than
90,
whatever,
yeah.
due to blah, blah, blah,
Yeah,
reg.
something like that, yeah.
Would that be
Yeah, no, that
amenable?
makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah. Jen, you wanna make that note?
Yeah.
Alright, and then for the bus stops, you all added a bunch. All that red you added?
Yes. We moved something around too, just kind of pulled stuff up from. It was the comment of, should we note if this is for the school year or the summer, but we would have the same requirements if it's school or summer. And then when you think about the transportation that we are providing for the summer, a lot of that's door to door.
Mm-hmm.
So there aren't separate bus stops.
So it would never be further than, it would be closer
Right,
than, if
it'd be
anything,
closer.
yeah, alright, so we don't need to worry
Yeah,
about that.
that's what she was going to, a lot of it is much closer and it's door
Yep.
to door. So we just added in here kind of the expectations within the bus stops.
Question here about minor students in grades kindergarten through second grade are required to have a parent guardian at the assigned bus stop for morning pickup and afternoon drop off.
Where
So
is that?
it's like the fourth bullet.
Bullet number 4.
3, 4, got it.
So I just wanna make sure I'm not misunderstanding. So if students are above grade 2, is it not required?
It's not required. It's actually grade 1. It's actually K to 1.
By whom?
Where do we see that?
I was looking for that, I was gonna ask you, but I couldn't find anything.
Might just been in the current.
Is it in the handbooks?
No,
Like, as a
it's
parent, I've definitely seen it before, and I've also had, community members question, like, the concept of older siblings, like, so, can my 5th grader walk my 2nd grader home, like, that sort
I
of
thought we added that
energy?
in, I thought we
Yeah.
put that in there. Did we not put that in there just because, that's.
The way that I, like, is also to supervise them.
Alright, why don't we, so the first bullet is the responsibility of the school department to safely transport students to and from their bus stop to their school. Right, that's what our responsibility, we're responsible, once we pick them up from the bus stop to get them to school, or from school to their designated bus stop, right? And in some cases, the designated bus stop is their home, because they get door-to-door service. It is the responsibility of the minor student's parent or guardian to safely transport them to the bus stop, right? Because wherever that stop is, it's the responsibility of the parent or guardian to get them there. And then it is also the responsibility of the minor student's parent guardian to supervise them at their assigned bus stop. once they're at the bus stop, we're not there, we don't get them until we pick them up. So we just wanna make sure it's clear that someone should be, you should be supervising, your child while they're there, cause if something happens, that's not the
It's
responsibility
not
of
on
the
us
school
till we
department.
got them on the
Right.
bus, yeah.
Isn't there something though that the bus stop is like
The
our
bus-
conduct stuff, like applies to bus stops?
So the bus is an extension of the school, and there
Yep.
is something there about behavior at the bus stop. And that's what's tricky, if an incident
Yeah.
happened at the bus stop and we're not there,
Mhm.
it does roll back into the school,
Mhm.
and, but,
Where's our
but
jurisdiction?
we need,
Laura's making a lawyer face.
yeah, we kinda,
I know, when I read that earlier, I couldn't find, I was like searching furiously before I came here, like trying to find, because, and then I started looking at other districts' policies just
Mhm.
to see, and they're all different, which leads me to believe that there isn't something. Because if they're all different, because I was wondering that too, when I saw it's a responsibility, like I wasn't entirely, like, I don't know,
I hear what
like,
you're saying, Ken. Like I don't, like
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying, but then also it counteracts the other piece that we're saying, which is like when you're at the bus stop, it's an extension and you can be held responsible in school for actions that are taken at the bus stop, which is what I believe our current conduct policies say.
see if it's,
Yeah, which
Alright, we're
doesn't-
gonna come back, we're
which
gonna
doesn't
check
make
on this.
sense if we're saying you're not our responsibility at the bus stop.
Alright, we'll put a note on that since we've stumped.
I can do a
Laura.
little research on that
Yeah.
if you want, if, I won't
Yes.
spend like a lot of time on it, but,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I think just like, cause I wanna make sure that we are as,
Consistent.
yeah,
well, and I also know we have the, student conduct on buses policy for us to review, and we had talked
Yeah.
about moving
Yeah,
that
that's
all
gonna
into
go.
the
Yes.
other,
Yeah.
so the other reason why I put this here is, if we're going to be making these changes,
Yeah,
let's make those
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
changes known,
Alright.
because it does get, it is challenging for us if we're gonna say that behavior that happened at the bus stop, when we're not there to see it, and a parent or guardian has chosen, I'm just gonna let my child go to the bus stop by themselves, well, where's the adult that's watching them?
Right,
We
Yeah.
can't put our eyes on them until we actually
on the
pick
bus.
them up
on the
with one
bus,
of us.
yeah.
So I think we should kinda go like, for clarity purposes, and
Mhm. Yeah, you're not
everybody
wrong.
knows.
You just
Yeah,
wanna be
no.
consistent. Alright, so I just made a note that we'll get more clarification on that and see if we can find anything. And then for the minor students in grade kindergarten through second grade are required to have a parent or guardian at the assigned bus stop for morning pickups and afternoon drop-offs. What is our current policy? Our current policy says something about that, I feel. Cause Ken, where did you get kindergarten in first?
So I thought that was in the current policy.
Okay.
Okay, one thing, that is a.
I don't see anything about that.
It's somewhere, because like,
Might be in the handbook.
yeah, there's one in North Kingston.
I don't see anything in the policy, so maybe it's in the
It's not in
handbooks.
the policy, yeah, it's not there.
Alright, we can check.
I know we don't let the kids off if there's no adults for them in K one. It's somewhere, 'cause I remember seeing that.
But going back to what we just talked about for the, like, who's responsible for the bus stop, like, what do you do if the bus driver rolls up and there's a kindergartner waiting for the bus by themselves?
What do we do?
You put them on the bus, right?
What we do,
Yeah,
on
I
the
mean,
bus,
so-
we take them, we're not
I
gonna not
think
take them.
Ken's talking about the
But when
off
we
part.
No, I know the
Yeah,
off
no, I
part
know,
is
I know,
really
I
out of
know.
control,
When they
but-
get dropped off, If we don't, they'll keep the child, the child in the bus and
Right,
until someone calls or bring them back to the school.
but we're saying like that you must have somebody there for
Morning and night.
morning and night,
Mhm.
and in reality, like, the morning part can't be controlled. Can be encouraged,
Yeah, like there's no recourse.
correct,
If a parent or guardian isn't there, like we
Right.
don't have any,
right,
right? I don't think.
no, I mean, and we're not gonna not pick the kid up, we're gonna get them on the bus.
And then, but also do we have the legal right to keep them on the bus and not drop them off?
If it's a safety reason.
But like, if my
Yes.
kindergartner is getting off the bus with my 5th grader and that's my choice.
Well, if we have permission, that's different.
Yeah, I would, just like, does this come up practically like a lot? I was wondering the same thing, like it seems to be the district and the policy in other districts, sorry, that at some kindergarten definitely, first grade, maybe even a little bit higher in others, that they want somebody there.
Mhm.
Which in this day and age makes sense, I mean, it didn't used to be that way.
It's actually the opposite though.
Um,
Like, I can track my kid now. So like, I can
Yeah.
watch my kid get off that bus, watch them on their walk home. Like, so like, again, it's not, but like, so I just wanna make sure if we're putting in a policy, like, we can put recommended language, but I
Yeah.
don't think we can mandate. And then also like if there is something in the state that says kindergarten through 2nd grade or kindergarten through 1st grade, we just need to reference it. So we just need to like,
Yeah,
start
I'd like
dig a
to
little bit
find
more.
that answer for you.
Yeah.
The legal answer to like, what's your responsibility,
Yeah.
what you can, and then that way you can craft
Yeah.
your policy.
Because I don't think what
however you-
Ken's saying is
yeah.
wrong,
Yeah.
but we might just want to put a like is recommended or
Right, and it's a
It's
practice
preferred,
that's been put
yeah.
in, that has been in place, and like you're saying, most districts have,
Yeah,
my previous district, we did as well, so.
Yeah. no, it makes sense. It's just the language part for the
Mhm.
policy that I want to make sure we get right.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I disagree, I'm just saying, like, we're saying required in the morning, and we can't require that in the morning, because we're not there.
Okay, so Laura will look more into that and
Okay.
then we'll figure out what the language is there. But I think we're all in agreement of the concept, is just
Concept,
figuring out the
right, yeah.
language. Okay. Do we wanna, that same sentence, like if a parent or guardian is not assigned to the bus stop and cannot be reached, the student will be returned to their school? Is it
So
until?
that would, and
Yeah.
that would refer back to the students in K through 2nd grade.
Yep.
Should we say that?
Yeah, we should, or just kind of move it over.
Put it
in
in
the
that,
same
put it in that
sentence,
same
yeah.
part, yeah, do you wanna do that?
Because we're
So
not
now-
taking a junior in high school back.
So this next bullet, that was, again, we highlighted the busy streets, because to
Yep.
ensure bus stops should be located away from busy streets, that's where we were concerned, because we do have bus stops on busy streets, because that's where kids live, so.
I didn't write this stuff in the red though, right? Did you all?
So what we did was, that was there, I moved it up, so
Got
I
it.
kept it in red, but then,
Got it.
I was gonna, when I was talking to Michelle, I said, we put when possible, and I was like, let's just kind of wait, because that,
Yeah, busy is, you know how much I love words that can't be quantified, like busy is hard to quantify. But again, like I think, like what our goal is to, from a school committee perspective, if this policy is adopted, like, is to try to give some, like, make sure that students are forward, like are the center of the policy, but then also like make it so that it's not all gray and that there is some like structure to how we make decisions, but
I just wanna make sure once it becomes
Yeah.
a policy, it's something that's practical.
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
If we have that, we're gonna have people, and if I was if I was Sharon and said, hey, that's a busy street, your policy says should be, and
Yeah.
I believe this is a busy street, and my child's bus stop shouldn't be here, and then I said, well, where are we gonna place the bus stop, especially if they
Yeah.
live right there?
Yeah, so we can make that language vaguer, I guess.
You could also, you could say like, like with the regulation that there is, like all bus stops are reviewed for safety hazards by the, you have that elsewhere in the, but by the police chief.
Like we had an incident with a bus stop on Tower Hill Road, and we had the police go out there, and they said, no, the stop's safe, but let's add signage. And they started talking about, let's get signage up on Tower Hill Road so that way people know there's a bus stop there, or you're approaching a bus stop.
What was the word you used for?
Possible safety hazards, I
Yep.
think. That's just right from the,
Yep. Fine. I made a note for that. Jen had a question about the registered sex offenders, safe distance for registered sex offender bus stops. That's gotta be somewhere.
yeah, I looked into that, Andrew actually had me look into it before, so you're not required, there was a case that said that you can't, like a sex offender, or there was a statute that said a sex offender can't live within, a certain distance from school, that was deemed unconstitutional last year, so that doesn't apply, like that also doesn't apply to bus stops, so you don't have any responsibility, but you do have a responsibility to notify parents of, hold on one second. So the police department is supposed to notify the school department when there is a level 3 sex offender who lives within 1,000 feet of a school bus stop. And that way you can notify the parents.
So there's different levels, so
Yeah.
what if it's a level 1 or a level 2?
There's no requirement under the law to. So I don't know, does the police department let you know?
They send us the information. And
Even if a
Michelle
level
has-
1?
Michelle has a list, we went through, there's a list that she has that she got from them.
Yeah, so I don't see any, problem with you letting parents know if it's less than a level 3.
But
There's
the
just,
law is if, to notify,
Well, the police
level.
have to notify us. if
please
it's-
notify us for
yeah.
level 2.
yeah,
For 1,000 feet.
Yeah, I'm not gonna sit here and quibble over what our legal requirements are
Yeah,
when
no.
it comes to putting students next to a bus stop.
You would like to be above the floor on this one,
Yeah.
Jen?
Yes.
yes.
I do think it's
I
important
agree.
to know what the base is though.
Yes.
And so. So what did we put?
So 1,000 feet?
But that's 1,000 feet, not for a bus stop, it's if they live within
No,
1,000 feet
so-
of.
No, there is but the bus stop thing is, like, that was that.
I can read it to you guys if you want. So information shall be disclosed by the local police department to the local school department for those registered offenders determined to be level 3 offenders by the parole board for the purposes of notifying parents of students whose school bus stop is within 1,000 feet of a level 3 sex offender's residence.
So that's basically 0.2 of a mile.
Is it?
1,000 feet equals 0.1893 of a mile. We are squarely within that zone. So,
I mean, yeah,
so to me, notification and moving are,
but what about where the stop is placed?
There's no requirement on your part to move it, but you certainly can.
I think we
Move
had
it, yeah.
we had a recent situation, and looking at, we had an unfortunate situation where on one road, there were two, and I'm not sure what level, we could go back and see the level, but anyways,
level 3.
they were level 3.
Yeah, so.
Two sex offenders that lived kinda like this, and kids lived here, 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 and then within the neighborhood, so there was a challenge there where the bus stop
Yes,
would be, especially when they're living within very close proximity, and the bus has to go there and stop.
Well within a quarter mile,
Yeah.
well within.
And I think at that point, and then we have
so
another
what
situation
would make
where
sense?
it's even closer, where,
If it was my kid, how far would the bus
So-
stop have to be
and then
to be a
you're-
big deal?
but it's also beyond that, and I can't really get into conversations here, It's also not even just
I wrote this
where
sentence
the
well
stuff is,
before.
'cause then it's where the family's comfortable for the child to be going and.
Yeah.
But there's exceptions, and we're trying to write the policy,
Right.
right? So we're trying to say, as North Kingstown School Department, this is what we think is best for students for bus stops, right? And so, if a family has a specific situation or whatever, and they want an exception to the policy, that's always allowable to be asked, right? So I think we just have to think about what makes most sense for our district and what we think would be, like, if we're gonna keep the sentence of like situated a safe distance from, and we might wanna add in level 3 sex offenders, like, I think to Jen's point, we should define safe distance, and I think we have to have some sort of reference point for that, like, I don't know, like,
Cause I also don't think we should be going, hey, Erin, there's a sex offender right next to your bus stop. Do you mind if we put your kid on the bus there?
well, it doesn't even sound like we're asking, it sounds like legally we just have to inform,
Well,
or we could inform.
But that's
Yeah.
kind of, I don't think that's a conversation that we as a district should be having. I
Yep.
think we as a district, as a practice, should be saying, oh heavens, there's a bus stop right next to a sex offender, we're going to move that. Like, I think we need to be proactive about that.
But I think there also needs to be an understanding that sometimes we may not have a choice but to have a bus stop within that area to pick up kids.
I understand that, but in this particular situation,
Well, let's
that's
do-
not the case. So,
Let's
but I
let's
think-
policy though off,
Right.
like, not a specific one situation, let's policy off of
Right.
what we think would be best for students.
I think the 1,000 feet is a reasonable, you know,
It seems like the standard for notification, so it would make sense.
That means if, by saying that, you can't have a bus stop there within 1,000 feet. That means the families need to understand, you now need to bring your child outside of that zone to get picked up. And we're gonna get pushback for that, because they're gonna want the bus stop closer, they're gonna want it somewhere, so their children aren't having to go that far. That's the predicament where, that's the challenge
So what
we're
if-
under of A, keeping children safe is the first thing, but then also making sure it's within a reasonable distance for the children to be going, or the parents bringing their child to that stop.
I'd like to think there aren't that many sex offenders living next to bus stops in our town.
Well, here we are. Okay, we probably aren't gonna land this plane today, so,
I don't think
well,
so.
I'll make a note and we can,
And we can, I mean, 1,000 feet comes from the law, like saying that, you know, within 1,000 feet, you gotta notify them, and, I mean, I agree with you, we don't want to be put
I
in
do
that
think too though,
situation.
yeah, and I do think it's,
We also don't wanna kinda put something in place that then
Yeah.
makes it even more challenging of
And then
picking
if
up
you
the children.
potentially, if the school department, the police department for some reason doesn't, like if somehow there's a sex offender that you were never notified about, and then it comes to light that there was a bus stop and,
Mhm.
I don't know.
There's also safety situations too to consider, and again,
yeah, but that's the law. They're breaking, they're
Yeah.
not, that's the law.
Is-
Whether or not they follow the law is not, like that, I would like to, I'm just gonna assume that they are going to inform us if there's a level 3 sex offender within XYZ, right? And then we have to work off of that, like, cause if we're not
I
notified, we
think
can't
she's
do
just,
anything.
I think she's also
Yeah.
just making a statement to kind of protect us as a school.
No,
community.
yeah,
We
yeah.
don't know.
No, I get that, like, if we're not informed,
Yeah, no.
that's
I-
not on us,
Right.
in theory. And I do think it could be, I don't think we have to put in like, cause it's not legally required, like the district could consider or may consider, like, if there's like a bus stop within 1,000 feet of a level 3, moving it, or working with the families to, you know, like, I think Cheerpro can, like, you don't wanna mandate something that doesn't work for the district or the families, but I do think having some sort of guidance in the policy about it to help the district set expectations for families and make sure that we're keeping kids safe is, there's gotta be something that we can do, so I'll work on maybe, or if Laura, you wanna propose,
I could think, I'll think about it.
yeah,
Yeah, it's more to, like, where we can do it, we should be doing it, and we should be having the thought process that says, oh, this comes in, okay, what are we doing, what are our options, like, so that we're doing everything that we can, because God forbid we don't, and something happens, right? At least we will have gone through the exercise of
Yeah,
what can we do.
okay, so we'll come
I
back
don't,
to.
I just don't
Yeah,
disagree
yeah,
with
yeah.
any of this, I'm just
No,
also
it's
trying to
tricky.
Yep.
think of the practicality
Yeah,
of
but
it
I don't wanna
too.
lock us into something that, you know, is undoable, but at least if we don't put it in the policy, it's not gonna be in anybody's, I'm not saying it's not gonna be in anybody's mind, but it's easy to overlook.
You're
It's-
individually dealing with it
Yes,
at that point,
yes.
Instead of policying
Right.
it.
Schools are not allowed to travel on private roads.
Does that mean that they aren't allowed to go into homeowners associations?
So it depends, and that's where we're going to get permission,
Yes,
so
this
for
is why I'm
private,
asking all
yeah,
these
but
questions.
private roads, we're not on private roads,
So,
So
so does that
within-
mean like cluster developments and
no,
homeowners?
it would be separate.
Okay, so can you define for me what a private road is?
Like a long dirt road that somebody owns.
I mean, it's a private road that's not not a town road, so it's not a town or city road, that's considered a private road. You have to make sure that those roads are plowed, so we have a list of those roads.
Okay,
So, development that has a homeowners association, those aren't necessarily private
Yeah.
roads, but within, you do wanna make sure you are clear to go into there. It's like, there was one that I said, we have to check with the town to make sure we're okay to go in there.
so do you need permission to go into HOAs and cluster
So I
developments?
don't think you need
No.
permission, I don't
Not if
know
it's
why
town
we have-
roads.
We checked to make sure that we were able to, and
Okay.
that road gets plowed.
Okay,
Because if it's something, if it's also too where homeowners association has their own plowing service, and it's not town
Yeah.
plowed,
okay.
that's a concern too.
Like,
We
I know
have to-
I live on a private road, so you can't come down my road, but like, I wanted to make sure that HOAs and cluster
Mhm.
developments did not count as private roads. It's 6, how much further do you wanna go into this?
I mean, we're almost. I'm just looking to see if there's any other clarification on some of the comments or some of the things. So Ken, you crossed
So-
out the accessibility and the safety ones under the bus stop ones?
Right, because we thought we could put it all together
Yeah.
in one section, because if it's gonna go with eligibility, then bus stop as well, so we just thought of,
Did you add it to the other sections though? Cause the bus stop, like eligibility is different than a bus stop change.
That's why I had written it separately, but I hear what you're saying. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just, there's difference between like, am I eligible for a bus or am I not eligible for a bus versus my bus stop is up a really high hill and I can't reasonably get to said bus stop because of my like mobility issue or whatnot. That's kind of what that was alluding to. It wasn't like meant to just be repetitive, but I see what you're saying. So we can take a look
yeah,
at that.
but I would, yeah, so we need to take some of what was in there and put it above.
Well, and then you need to change it from eligibility to something else. Cause this is under the bus stop section, which is different than the transportation eligibility section. I can go through, I think I understand
I would
what
just
you
leave
mean.
it there then, because.
I can make
it's
it
not
more
really-
clear. Yeah, it gets like
It's never
weird.
gonna change,
Yeah.
yeah, I would just leave that under under the stop,
Okay, we can make
because
it
that way we're not
more
having to
clear.
then change.
Yeah, like that's why I wrote, like I know it's annoying, but like that's what I was thinking is like eligibility is here and then bus stops are here, and even though they're not the same, they're like, they're same but different, like you know what I mean?
Alright, I can go through the comments and then,
Okay,
kind of you and Michelle can get through the part that you didn't get through in the bottom.
okay. Rob McKenna, I sent you both this weekend the attendance ones for you both to review, before our next meeting. And I'm gonna work on, a, like, new student registration one. Our next meeting will be the 25th, and it looks like we're gonna add those OFL policies, yes, just those
You
two.
said the Title One, two of them.
Yeah, the two,
Title One,
yep.
family engagement, and the McKinney-Vento.
Yep, and we'll push out the benefit one till
Mhm.
we are ready to do all of the benefit
Yeah, we can keep
ones.
them all, but I think it would make sense
I
to
think
keep
it
them all
definitely
the
makes
same.
sense, yeah, that was my concern, I didn't wanna just
Mhm.
add the one and not talk about the other ones, okay. So I will add those to the agenda for the 25th along with these also.
Mhm.
Okay, anybody else have any questions? Okay, I will make a motion to adjourn,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,